Hello and welcome to the Dogfight, a podcast dedicated to the London Spitfire and Overwatch League. Fasten your seatbelts, everybody, and observe that no smoking sign, because today we'll be discussing the recent changes to the Overwatch contenders stuff, competitive queue, the Spitfire starting roster, and predict how the Overwatch League preseason will go. Now, this is a first episode, perhaps a rough draft, if you will. This is a new podcast. I'm Havokpus. Myself, along with Frozen Creek, who will mostly be working behind the scenes in this show. We've bodied a Cloud9 fan cast, or I guess the Cloud9. We alternate, but that's not important. But we operate a Cloud9 fan podcast, and we decided that since the London Spitfire is its own thing and kind of its own separate organization, we thought we'd do the same thing with this show. And so we have formed this little ragtag group of ace pilots to talk about London Spitfire as well as other Overwatch League stuff. So let's have everyone kind of go down the line and introduce themselves a little bit. Jord, why don't you start? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Hi, my name's Jordan, but I'll probably just be called Jord on the podcast. I am a huge Overwatch fan, currently in college trying to set up my own THESPA chapter here to help bring esports to my own school. London is my favorite Overwatch League team, and I am very excited to see what they're going to do this season.
Well, welcome aboard, Jordan. How about Wolf? You're up. Why don't you give us a little biography?
Hey, right. Hey, everyone. My name is Wolf of Villainy. Just probably for the sake of the podcast, we're just gonna go by Wolf. Been playing Overwatch since the release. Kind of hung around the competitive scene for a while. Also like a bit of a Reddit shit poster. I'm currently in the Overwatch scene as a coach and a free time analysis. So I'm just here to hanging out and contribute as much as I can to the podcast. Really, this is actually my first time doing a podcast, so pardon me if I mess up or whatever else. But outside from that, that's all you need to know about me.
Well, we're great to have you, and don't worry, you're in good hands. Frozen and myself have been doing the podcasting for a little while, so we're all the more willing to help. Zoey, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit?
Hi, my name is Zoe. And I've been around the Overwatch competitive scene since I think it was Atlantic Showdown, and I've been a huge fan of it ever since. I've been watching crap ton of tournaments, and I've been really looking forward to be able to do something like this, and extremely looking forward to this podcast, and I'm glad to be part of it. And London is certainly my favorite Overwatch League team.
We're not too professional over at our other show either.
Yeah.
if you've listened to it, you'll know that we say a lot of uhs and we ramble. So
yeah, funnily enough, I was not a huge fan of like Cloud9 before this, but now since I was a big fan of Laser Kittens, and then I sort of came over here, and then I realized then the Spitfire was a thing, and I just sort of fell in love with it.
Well, cool. All right. Well, let's get on to our first topic, and that is talking about the Overwatch Contenders. It is returning to pretty much the joy of everyone. I think Contenders was really great because it allowed, sort of the fresh young talent to kind of be noticed, and it was really interesting. Blizzard, I believe, is going to be taking some of the more existing stuff like Apex and some other regions and giving them their own sort of contenders scenes in replace of that. And there's also potential for Cloud9 / London Spitfire to create their own contenders team to try and build up some more local talent to combat a lot of the issues with the relatability of the main Spitfire roster. But that's a discussion for another time. But I guess the big question is, can it really help grow the scene, and what we would like to see from it? Who'd like to start first?
I guess I can start. I'm actually looking at the official announcement that they made today about how the new program's going to work. So yes, they are going to be grouping up Apex, a Premier Series. The big thing also is they're going to be adding 2 new regions, which is going to be Australia and South America as well. So basically what they're saying is that the top 6 teams from those existing tournaments will be also then invited to join the region's contenders for 2018. So it seems like they're going to really try to streamline it a little bit more, because there are so many tournaments that are out there. A lot of times, I'm guessing for newer viewers, they're like, why does this tournament matter? Like, how does this involve with either the World Cup or Overwatch League in general?
Yeah, I think that streamlining would definitely be something good to note. I think also they said that they were introducing something else where it was specifically for solo queue players, and that if you were good enough at solo queue, you would be invited into this special tournament that could help you become a pro. And I think that was very interesting, because in esports there's very like high barriers of entry, and it's really difficult to break into the pro scene. I find it interesting that they're creating so many avenues for players to actually try and become pro players. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
The thing about open division that people kind of have to realize a bit, though, because this kind of exists, it kind of started out its existence a little bit ham-fisted, because the actual competitive Overwatch scenes have been kind of exist since the beta independently, outside of any Blizzard control. So, So having open division now is kind of a weird way to try to incentivize like casual players into playing into playing like actual like competitive scene, I guess. But one of the problem I'm seeing with this, because since the competitive scenes have been like so established in parallel to open division, like your casual, like typical, like even your typical like general GM kind of level players, like if they grew up with a friend who's playing, they're gonna go up against like teams that are like scrimming day in and day out. Like they're so it's very much gonna be loop-sided unless you have to make your way into the actual competitive scenes and start grinding your way up through that route instead. So as far also for the fact that for the last 3 seasons, Open Division has been a little bit of a joke, because you are honestly only playing to get Blizz buck at the end of each season, and honestly, for a lot of teams, that it just isn't worth the time and commitment. They would probably rather like do more scrim or do more weekly tournament that counts toward more progress. So, and also have better cash prize as well. So having open division now tie into contenders is probably a smart move in Blizzard in terms of like creating a natural ecosystem to have a route going from like being a competitive player to like really a tournament players, and then going up to like potentially like even OWL level. But there's still a barrier up and entry that people needs to take for to get over it first before they are like in the actual competitive scenes. So that's kind of my perspective on it. But I do think it's a step in the right direction, because I certainly feel like there's a lot of like hidden talent that can be discovered. It just a matters of like letting him have the space to be actually discovered and being polished enough.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely going in the right direction. I think that it's mostly going to probably take some time to maybe get that structure to be more stable, because it seems like, you kind of, I think this is maybe the first time they're doing it like this, or maybe not as long. So if they can iron out some of the kinks, I think it'd be really great to see, just because it would certainly give players more incentive to play competitive and maybe take the game more seriously. Zoe, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I mean, I do have a few thoughts, mainly because it's like, I was not really sure exactly. God, it's like the addition of new region is certainly a step in the right direction, and also a chance to get me boys Flash Wolves noticed. But I don't think. I mean, like, I see these regions with with decent viewership numbers, not really anything you want to really write home about. So I think maybe the contenders, I think the contenders could be an opportunity to grow in those regions, especially South America, which, has tournaments that pull in like about hundreds of people at the moment, and pretty much only the hardcore fans would watch it. And I think it may be the opportunity to broaden the horizon a bit.
Yeah, it's sort of a softball kind of topic anyway. Something to just kind of break the ice, get everyone kind of thinking. This next topic, I think we will have some pretty good conversation about, a nice good back and forth. And that is the competitive queue that is taking place. We've seen a lot of stuff on Reddit lately about how competitive matchmaking and everything works. A lot of people are complaining about one tricks and how competitive is sort of approached. Should we have a role queue? Is it too limiting the flexibility of the game and how that was designed around it? It's a very interesting back and forth, because I personally think that some sort of role queue is needed, considering how many DPS players just are. I want to play DPS, but since it's always taken, I have to flex to either tank or support, which, to be fair, is actually fairly meaningful, and in a game like this is pretty fun. But it does kind of keep me out of the role that I do want to play, and it's making me maybe enjoy the game a bit less than I would otherwise.
To just kind of explain for people who might not know what we're talking about when we mean by a role queue system, it's kind of a way that instead of just going into a random queue as we normally would in competitive right now, you would go into a queue based off what type of character you play, whether that be DPS, defense, tank, healer, so on and so forth.
Kind of like League of Legends.
Yeah, kind of like League of Legends. Just for those who might not either go on Reddit to see what people are talking about on there, or who have never played League before. I guess my general opinion of it is, I think it's always a good idea to give more options for people who don't want to, be stuck with a bunch of just healers on one team or a bunch of just DPS on one team. I do understand the flip side, though, where it does kind of hinder the whole be flexible versus what the other team is playing type of concept. I guess we would have to take in consideration if Blizzard would still allow you to switch characters like whenever you'd want, even if you said you wanted to be DPS when you went into that queue.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the tricky part, because the more you try to isolate a role or isolate someone to a particular area of like the champion pool, I guess is the right term for it. The more you isolate that, the more rigid and tricky it becomes. And some people are saying like, oh well, that'll define a meta, and then that'll make the game boring. But some other people argue that League is doing the same thing, and it's actually making it a little better. Someone actually in the chat wants to know, how do you think a role queue will fix this issue? If anyone has an answer to this, I would be interested to know.
Something I actually just thought about. I think if I'm correct, I've played a bit of Paladins, and I believe for their competitive, you must be a certain level on a handful of characters. If that was the case with something like this, you would have to play so many hours of a particular hero before even joining that queue. Something like that in order to, bar against people who are like, doing troll picks, doing a certain type of class just because they're not good at it, just to throw games. That is a potential thing that could be a problem. But I do think role queue could fix the situation, but Blizzard would have to modify a lot of parts of a lot of the game in order to fit that.
Wolf, do you have any opinions on it? You've been kind of pinging us.
Well, I personally think that the rogue queue system, while idealistic, it doesn't really work in terms of Overwatch because unlike in League where you install all characters and then you usually stick to that certain character to that certain character until like the end of the match. In Overwatch, flexing and switching out mid match is always going to be a thing, and the only reason and the only thing that's gonna make like role queue system kind of work is you basically lock into a queue, and then when you play, you only would be able to select like the characters in the role you play, which I think is deeply limiting because let's face it, there's like half of the cast are like DPS player, only five of them are tank, and then only 5-6 of them are support, and even then one of them isn't exactly what you call a true support to begin with. So whoever isn't going to be in the DPS role, like their role is just going to be very limited. And if also in a case where like if they play a match and then suddenly they want to switch out the tanks or they want to switch somebody else for the DPS, like how are they going to be able to change that if the role system such as what I just said is going to help? Um, Role queue, I do understand the frustration up ladder, which is why I'm coaching right now instead of playing haha. But I think you kind of have to understand that competitive is very much a way to like refine your mechanical skill and limited in play. So trying to make a system where you force like 6 different randos to work together versus against 6 different randos is always gonna have an inherent risk to it, because sometimes you just get lucky and then get killed with like agility, or maybe sometimes you just get unlucky and then get like 3 mercy one trick in your queue. So personally, I don't necessarily agree with a row queue system because of the way it can also affect the game like that, and then also like a row queue like that can also unreasonably like force a sudden meta into the game as well. Like are Blizzard going to have to like having like a fixed 2-2-2 every time they play, or maybe 3-2-1 or some sort like that? It's like I would prefer the game's queue to remain like, as flexible as it is at right now, so that it can cover like all of the possible situation. Of course, being some of those possible situations result in shit like 5 DPS. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, very good points. I think you do bring up some good counterpoints to the role queue, and that is that it does sort of eliminate the flexibility of Overwatch, and that's probably one of the things that everyone likes about Overwatch, is that you can have a lot of leeway in how your team is made up and how you play around that and how you play around the enemy. It's certainly very different from something like League of Legends, where you have a ban phase where you ban champions, and then you go about going back and forth between the teams and selecting champions, and then finally going into the game and picking champions. How would you guys feel about having a sort of League of Legends ban system, or a similar champion select type of system? Would that help Overwatch? Would that really hinder it by making the queues too long and making everything too rigid?
See, I happen to think that Paladins is a good example of this working, but this game isn't Paladins for sure. I've just got to say that just Overwatch. This is what I love about Overwatch, is just the flexibility and things like that. And the ability to swap heroes on the fly is what makes certain people so great. But if you had a sort of pick ban system, it wouldn't be too massively. It would really limit what certain people could do.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think one problem with the Paladin system that Jordan described was that the whole hero champion mastery thing. I think it only kind of delays you a bit, because really you just have to win. From what I've played from Paladins, and this is a very limited thing, but from my playing of it, you just have to keep playing the champion until you get to that certain spot. So all you have to do is just keep spamming normal games, and then eventually you'll get to the point where like, oh, I can play this in rank now. So it just kind of slows down any sort of buggery that you see. And I think that also kind of still tangles up the problem of how you balance competitive. So it's still a very hot button issue. It's very messy. If you have any points that you would like to make on it, if you have your own take on the situation, please leave it in the comments on wherever you're listening to this, if it's a Reddit thread or YouTube or one of our Podbean or one of our other little things. Be sure to leave it in the comments and tell us what you think. We will try and address it either right then or on the next show. But moving on, we're going to talk about something more Spitfire specific. That's a little tongue twister. Try saying that 3 times fast. And that is, who will the London Spitfire use for their starting roster? This is actually kind of a little puzzle that we have here, because we have the core Kongdu Pantera people, we have GC Busan, and then we have Nuss and Fury, who are 2 free agents. And so this is a 12-person roster, and you can only have 6 people. So who can we expect to start in there for their preseason match? And how is the team going to look when they hit the stage? Are we going to try and do a mix of Kongdu Pantera and GC Busan? Are we going to do just GC Busan and maybe our free agent guys, because they got in LA tonight, I believe? And we just stick with them? Is it more of a still trying to figure out synergies and what's working, what's not? What can we expect, and who do you think are the best possible combinations?
What I think they're going to try to do, because especially who they're going against first, they're going against LA. That's right. They're going against Gladiators. We'll touch upon that later. But they're really going to try to have to enforce like just setting up a team, like kind of that team cooperation. A lot that's kind of going to be, especially since they're a mix of 2 separate, very good teams. That's what they're going to have to be very concerned about. For example, when Dallas Fuel, they are made up of Envious. The majority of the team is Envious. So they already know how to play with each other. They already know their strengths. They know how to communicate very well. Same thing with Houston. A lot of it's from Corn Dogs. So that's going to be their main challenge. I feel like the smartest move for them to do is to keep the teams that they got. So whether that be, just kind of keep their own separate teams, and then maybe add the new people and start with that before trying to mixing up these 2 teams together, at least for the first game. I mean, as they go forward and they have more practices, I can definitely see them do the teams together. But for right now, I think the smartest move is just to play off the strength of their teams they already have, and then they can mix it up, especially when we go into the regular season.
Yeah. A trickle-down system certainly sounds maybe like a good option, just because you can kind of slowly reintroduce elements and see how they do as they mix. I would so like to see, though, like Rascal and Prophet and Fisher and Jester team up, just to like dream team it, just combine their powers and then just wreck everybody. But I do understand that there's a synergies issue that you do have to take into account. How does everyone else feel? What is Wolf, Zoe? What are your expectations for who will be playing and not be playing? Because there is also an element of the roster is so stacked that you will also be leaving a lot of talent on the bench.
Personally, sorry.
Go ahead.
Personally, I feel like if on my head, Cloud9 is gonna have a lot of good flexibility because like right now they are fielding like a really top tier 12-man rosters that is experienced in top level Apex, and also for the fact that they're having a 12 roster that is actually very good because they can actually do in-house scrim and where they can mix and match like the personnel and also like do a lot of cool stuff that you can only really do with a sister team. So there's definitely a lot to be a lot of potential there. But given like the history of Cloud9 and how London Spitfire lost the GC Busan coach to Korea to the Seoul Dynasty.
Yeah.
There's something to be said, and I mean like as somebody who have been watching Overwatch since Atlantic Showdown, I can't help but thinking that somewhere along the way, Cloud9 is going to either like get really unlucky or something bad just going to happen to them because historically all of their incarnation of roster like always kind of run into some brick wall that is either a result like mediocre performance or unlucky or just playing
or a play that becomes a horrendous meme that everyone spams in Twitch chat, and it hurts me to this day.
It's like if I were making a list, and I'm actually making one, a list about like a top 5 or top 10 most snake-bitten Overwatch team, like up until this point, Cloud9 is gonna be like in like on it because just how unlucky they have seemed. Like even when they got Kondu Pantera, they immediately lost 2 of their they immediately lost to GC Busan and then lost 2 of their core players because they want to remain in Korea rather than going to London. So it's like, okay, I want to be optimistic about Cloud9 and London roster, but in the back of my mind, I can't help but thinking that as top tiers they are, something's gonna happen and it's not gonna be pretty.
Well, you can't be a cursed roster if you're not named Cloud9, and this might be their big plan all along. Zoe, you were saying something. You were going to say something earlier. I want to give you the chance to talk and say your thing.
I never had the thought of sister teams even cross my mind until Wolf said it, and thank you very much, Wolf, for actually getting my mind on that track. But one thing that I think of is that I think that they will probably they probably will just try and mix and match a lot with their roster. I don't think it will be too serious, especially with the first season, especially with the first preseason game. But I do think going forward, they're probably going to have a mix of KD, so maybe KDP and GC Busan. So maybe we can start to see Rascal and Prophet maybe together at one point. That would be amazing, just for sure. But I don't know. Time will only tell.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'm also really interested in how the team will approach this new meta with Moira, assuming that Moira is available when they start playing preseason, because she seems like a really interesting champ because she's like an off healer that she can do a lot of good damage, but she can also do a lot of great burst healing, and she can like. It seems like she's really good in some situations, but she's like awful in other situations, and you have to pick her and use her at the right time. So I'm really curious to see how the team adapts to this, as well as maybe some of the other changes with like Mercy, and the fact that Junkrat still has yet to be nerfed, which is criminal. I'm really excited for the preseason and what the team approaches. Speaking of, great transition by the way, London's first preseason match will be against the LA Gladiators on December 7th at 5 p.m. Eastern. And this is actually a bit of a grudge match considering Surefour is an ex-Cloud9 player, and all of these fantastic Korea boys have taken his spot, so to speak, in the Overwatch League for London's spot. And it'll be pretty interesting to see what's going to happen.
I personally think that the preseason, like, there's not going to be much to be had in terms of preseason because it's literally just like going to be testing out roster and testing out equipment and testing out stream to make sure everything's gonna run smoothly. But honestly, London Spitfire are probably gonna take this one like quite handily because if we just gonna compare like rows to rows and pound to pound players, so like GC Busan, the GC Busan and KDP mix are like head and shoulder above all of everyone that they had in LAG. So that's probably a 3-1 or even a 4-0. That's my prediction for it.
Yeah, I'm kind of more interested to see like when the rest of the players actually arrive, to see like when they actually start maybe streaming all together. That's when we'll really be able to start really dissecting this preseason match. Because right now half the team isn't even there just yet. So I feel like once we actually get them all together is when we can really start being a bit more in depth about who we think is going to play that first match, what do we think they're going to do, so on and so forth.
Honestly, I'm not so sure about the whole grudge match thing. I'm not so sure, especially because Surefour was a bit of a time ago, but I'm not sure. I think the rivalry may be there, especially with all the shit talk that's been going on Twitter as of late. But I honestly am not entirely sure what entirely both teams will go into this with.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. And I may have actually jumped the gun as Frozen is yelling at me behind the curtain, if you will, that I mentioned this like a week earlier that I should have. My bad. But we can talk about this more next week if we have anything extra to say. I do think one thing that is interesting is that preseason will at least give us a glimpse into how the team and the other Overwatch League teams will perform and who is kind of good and who is bad. And the great thing about preseason is it's okay if you lose because it doesn't matter. Football all the time, Patriots may lose all of their preseason games, and it's like, why did they lose? Like, oh, because Tom Brady isn't playing, because you don't want him to get hurt. This is a great time to scout strategies, see what other teams are doing, without incurring any kind of penalties towards prize money and other bigger matches and so forth. But are there any matches in particular you guys are hyped about? I'm actually really excited about the Dallas and Houston match and the New York and Boston match, because those are going to be really fun, I think.
A little tidbit about myself. So I actually lived in both New York and Dallas before. So these are both big games I'm going to be watching for sure. Of course, with Houston and Dallas, who's going to be the main Texas team? And I mean, New York and Boston have gone back, before any of us have been alive. It's going to be really big. And I'm really hoping that the teams will hype it up as well as, or as much as we are. Kind of play into that, like the whole rivalry. I know some teams definitely have. I know both LA teams have really been, at least on Twitter, pushing each other's buttons, I guess is a funny way, trolling each other about it. So I'm hoping the rest of the teams will also kind of play into that, because it just builds more hype. It kind of shows what they are in. They know what we are kind of feeling, and I'm kind of hoping they do that more.
Jordan, actually a question for you. Since you did say you were from New York at one point, how do you feel about New York's branding? How do you feel about the logo and their name? Because this is a very divisive topic, and I actually have to say their logo has grown on me significantly. I actually really dig their logo now, and I wouldn't mind wearing a New York Excelsior hat or something because it is actually a pretty sick logo.
Yeah, so when I first saw, because before all the teams got announced and I knew New York was going to have a team, same thing with Dallas, I was like, okay, I'm probably, they're, my home is there. But when they first did the branding, another tip about me, marketing and branding, that's all I'm in school for right now. This is all I want to do. So this is definitely something that I pay attention to a lot. I had no idea what they were doing. Excelsior, I kind of get because the flag actually has Excelsior on it. It's not a pretty name to say, unfortunately. They have a good heart. Like, I get where they're coming from, but it's not a pretty name to say.
It does not roll off the tongue.
No, not at all. I actually liked the logo because it does look a lot like a spray paint stencil. And if you ever go to New York, especially New York City, the street art there is pretty phenomenal, especially if you go into certain parts like inside the subway. It's a big part of the culture. So that's what I kind of assumed it was kind of about. Beyond that, I think they've done okay. I wish they kind of did more with like the branding because it is probably, I would say, the most unique logo out of all the teams. I mean, not saying that it's like the best logo. There's a big difference between unique and best, but it's definitely the one that you'll catch your eye the most because it's just so odd. And I hope that they kind of push that more. If you actually ever go to like their website and you see their Twitter, they have used it a lot for like their image. I think it's like their hashtags like NYXL.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
actually use the font with that, so that's actually really interesting too. So I guess my general opinion, I don't like the name, but you can't do anything about it. I actually really do like the logo. And their team is good, but I want to see them play. I want to see them play, honestly.
Yeah, and we actually won't get to see Flower play for maybe like half the first season because he won't become of age yet, which is kind of unfortunate. After having like such a sick showing on Widowmaker in the World Cup, just getting headshot after headshot and just slaying it. But yeah,
Don't forget, he deserves to be Team Oval MVP.
Exactly.
A whole other controversy. Actually, speaking of branding, there's something I wanted to bring up that has been kind of circulating on Twitter as of, I think, this past 2 weeks. So ESPN Esports, they're actually pretty active, at least recording everything Overwatch related, which is great, having a big name like ESPN. So something that one of the writers did, they have been doing an Overwatch League branding ranking. So they have done for the past couple weeks, they've taken all the brands and they've ranked them based off of team name, logo, promotion, like how much have they done things on Twitter, Reddit, other social media platforms, how does their merchandise look, and then they did kind of a joke thing saying like first date test, like if you mention this team's name, how embarrassing would you look, so on and so forth. So they've done it with all the teams now. Today, officially, they finished all the teams, and they have a ranking system for all of them. And this is out of 70 points. The highest one is Seoul Dynasty with 64. And it goes down to then Houston, LA Gladiators, the Dragons. Then it's us. We're 54 out of 70.
We should be higher, damn it. I demand a recount.
Here, I'm trying to see if I can find the exact reason why.
Well, that's what you get for not including an S in your name.
A highly debated topic.
I'm gonna try.
Honestly,
I'm gonna try to see why he actually ranked that. Give me a sec.
Honestly, Seoul Dynasty sounds like a mafia.
It actually does, in a way. It does sound like a crime organization.
I mean, I will say, their logo's pretty great. I mean, ours is great too, but they did a good job with tying it all with one central theme. I mean, we did too, but they did a really good job with it. I will give them a hand clap for that in general. Okay, yeah, this is I just found the London, what they said about London. So we had a great team name. We got 18 points out of 20 for that. It was a good logo, 18 points out of 20 for that. The promotion, we got an 8 out of 10 for, which I think that's mostly because we had an airplane in Stylosa. We had Stylosa, so of course that means we win. I mean, it's Stylosa. And we lost the most points out of this person's ranking system. I'll repeat, this is just one guy ranking it for fun, but it's kind of interesting. Our merchandise is 3 out of 10, and that's why we got ranked really low.
I mean, yeah, I would buy a Spitfire cap. I don't see why it got ranked so low. Maybe it was the shirt.
I think it was the shirt. I think the blue was maybe a bit too bright, and maybe it didn't look super well on a shirt. I mean, on a hat, you just get like it's black. I think from the hats I saw that it was like a black hat, and then it just had like the logo in the front, so it looked really snazzy. But then the shirt was like just super bright blue, and then like orange on the side of like one shoulder, and it kind of looked like a soccer jersey. Kind of didn't, and I guess I could kind of see why they wouldn't like it, but
this is like his exact words. He just said, the team colors work in the logo, yet I feel like they clash when on a jersey. I feel the same about the skins, unfortunately. Bright colors can work, I think they do in the logo, but not feeling the merch. I mean, now that, like, if you actually look at the jersey, the bright blue and the logo kind of clashes. I wish they had, like, some type of other color to separate it. Maybe, like, a white border around the logo. So I get where he's coming from, but, I mean, we aren't the lowest ranked team when it comes to that list, so, I mean we're decent. We're in the top, I think we're in the top 5 for that. So that's pretty good, honestly, out of 12 teams. So that was just something also interesting that was kind of just wrapped up today. A lot of people are kind of interested to see this person's opinion.
Hey, top 5 is good for Cloud9 Overwatch, all right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
exactly.
Also, this also brings up the fact that I believe it's also December 6th is when all merchandise is going to be on sale finally. So that's another big date to also keep in mind.
Just in time for the holiday season. Max out your parents' credit cards. Buy that merch.
I'm really sad, actually. I mean, I get why I wasn't doing Black Friday because everything would be sold out super quickly, but I'm already broke from Black Friday. But yeah, December 6th, another really big day because I know I'm going to be trying to buy at least a hat and a shirt, maybe a jersey. Just depends. I feel like the jerseys are going to be kind of pricey, so it really will have to depend.
Yeah, same.
I need them Spitfire socks, man.
Oh yeah, they're making
Spitfire
socks. I
socks.
forgot about that.
Wait,
Yeah,
they
are
actually
making
have socks?
Yeah, they're making socks for all the teams. I
No
completely
way.
forgot about. Yeah, no, that's the thing. Yeah, the confirmed merchandise so far for each team is jerseys, one for home and one for away, a cap, socks, and I think regular shirts as well. Don't quote me on that last one. I think I saw it somewhere. I think I saw it for Dallas actually. But based off what they showed at BlizzCon, those were the definite things that they're definitely going to have in the store. What I'm also really looking forward to is whenever they're going to put out the skins that we can buy. I think that's been confirmed at this point. That they'll have the skins for sale for the teams. I'm really interested to see how they're going to actually price that and market that.
And also a thing to note, everyone out there, 50% of the revenue generated by the skins will go to the teams. It'll be collected in like a large pool, and then the pool will be divvied up. So if you want to support, supporting one team basically supports all the teams, and if you want to support a team, buy the skins, buy as many as you want, buy all the other cosmetic crap, sprays and other stupid stuff that doesn't really matter. Because skins equal wins, and sprays equal nays.
It's also really great, this is a little off topic, how much Blizzard is trying to really support the players with money. That sounds like really silly a little bit, but compared to other esports teams where I know there's been issues before with either housing or contracts, it's pretty great how much Blizzard's been like, listen, you need a guaranteed housing, you need a guaranteed pay, this is how much pay you have to give your players, this is how much percentage they need to have. So they put their foot down on it, which I think is really nice, not only for the players, it's nice for us to feel like, they're getting paid, the right amount. And also it's good for, as we said, one of the first topics we talked about was the new open division. So like, let's say I'm a pro player, I want to be pro. I know that if I ever do get into the Overwatch League, I'll have I'm secured. I'll have a good job. I'll make money. So that's also something that kudos to Blizzard for actually enforcing that pretty heavily.
Yeah, for sure.
Indeed. Does anyone have anything else to say on maybe any matches they want to see happen during the preseason? Anything else that they're excited about or want to touch on really quickly? As you know, time is wearing thin, and so is my brain.
I'm kind of excited about the Dragons Dynasty game. I mean, like, especially because we've not seen a whole lot of the. I mean, we have seen a bit of the Dragons roster. A lot of it is just former LGD, but I'm sort of excited to see finally that squad go up against effectively what was the core of the old LH and the best of pretty much a lot of the best players in Korea. And I'm excited to see that, even though I doubt it's going to be taken seriously. I'm still very excited.
Can someone remind me? I don't remember if this has been clear or not. Didn't they mention that maybe this might not be preseason, but like regular season, that they're gonna have like an all-star match? Wasn't that the thing that did they mention
10
that
through
or
12th,
not?
yeah, August 10th through 12th. Yep.
Okay, yeah, that's something. I mean, that's way far ahead from what we're looking for. I couldn't remember if that was preseason or not, but I always wanted to know if that was still a thing that they were gonna do, because that will also be a really big hype fest whenever that actually comes to light. And I wonder if they're gonna do any. I mean, we already know about the Internet Hulk Award that they're gonna do. I wonder if they're gonna do any other awards that they're gonna announce. But that's all stuff way in the future for now, of course.
Personally, I just want match so that I can actually watch and analyze. That's all. Maybe hoping that Houston would take a beating, but that's just me. Yeah. As far
Houston
as
has Mendo. Mendo, everyone loves Mendo.
no, I just maybe it's just me moving. Maybe it's just me putting on my game face on before I move out of Houston. But
Okay, I see.
I feel like next week for sure, right before the preseason, we'll really dive into at least the first couple of games, and
we'll
stack it up.
Yeah,
that's what I'm really looking forward to, is that deep dive into these games.
Oh yeah, I am super excited for that. And I hope that what they did with World Cup is that they base the match times off of when the last game ended versus having like set times they're supposed to be at. I'm kind of hoping they do that. I don't think they're doing it that way, unfortunately. I'd like that with the World Cup, because that way I feel like the players didn't have to worry about it. Worry about the times. But again, this is all stuff we'll go into more next week, of course. We still have a whole week to wait, and for Cloud9, we still have a whole week to wait for our team to actually kind of show up. So, or at least half our team.
Indeed. Yeah. So, we'll dive in. We'll go in on specifics of, how players are good on which heroes and all this other stuff. We'll go super in depth. We'll go all in. But I think that's going to do it for us today. So, all right, passengers, please put your tray tables up and return your seats to their full and upright position as we are coming in for a landing. So thank you for listening to the Dogfight, our lovely podcast, and we hope to see you in the skies real soon. Thank you, and say goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Hope to see you guys next week.
hello, Reddit.
Goodbye.
All right.
Hello and goodbye.
Bye, guys.